Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for another Not at the Museum Thursday night. I'm Sylvia. I'm the assistant curator here at the Niagara Falls History Museum. As usual, we're going to begin our evening with our land acknowledgement. The Niagara region of Ontario is located on the shared territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and Chinootan people. The Chinootan people have called this land their home for thousands of years, and more recently, the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee have been sharing this land as one dish, one spoon treaty territory. Tonight, we continue our Coming Out Stories journey for 2021. This is our third year running this series, and we are so happy to do so. It's designed for the Two-Spirit LGBTQ+ community and straight community alike. Each night, we have a new guest that shares a very personal story about coming out to their families and to their community. And we are so honored that we are seen as allies and a safe space to facilitate these types of very important stories in the Niagara region. So we thank you again for joining us, and it's our pleasure to have you here. So this program, as you know, deals with gender and sexuality. So as a preference, or as a warning, a note, there is going to be probably some discussion about sexuality. And as you may know, we do have a Q&A feature in Zoom. So if you have any questions for our presenters tonight, please feel free to enter your question in the Q&A feature. If you are joining us on Facebook, there is the comments section. You can also add your comments there. And at the end of the presentation, we will get to your questions and hopefully answer all of them. So I won't take up any more of your time. I will hand this over to our wonderful hostess with the mostest, Falynn Shaw.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coming Out Stories. We have a very special show for you tonight. Lisa Crawford, she's had a dream to be in the film industry, and it has come true in a really big way. Now she's creating, acting, writing, and the list goes on. She is acting, producing the series Pink is In. I just had a chance to watch it. I actually watched both the season twice, and I just heard that they've wrapped the second season. So we're going to be able to catch that coming out. I have to say, I look forward to having this conversation, and I've been looking forward to it since Lisa said yes. Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm happy that you're going to be sharing some of your stories with the community, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to have you here so you can share some of your journey and some of the stories that you've experienced. I'll let you start if you want to talk about maybe how everything started. You were originally from South Africa, lived in the Caribbean, and then came to Canada. So you've had quite a journey just in those ways. So yeah. Take it away.
Well, it all started when I was 5 years old. You know, I did notice that I really felt I was born in the wrong body. And I remember seeing other girls and being so envious of them, and just knowing that that's how I should have been. I remember there was a nursery rhyme that I used to love and hate at the same time. And it would be saying, you know, what are little boys mad out of? What are little boys mad of? Frogs and snails and puppy dog tails. And I used to hate listening, just knowing that why was I made of puppy dog tails, frogs and snails? And then they'll say, what are little girls made out of? What are little girls made out of? Sugar and spice and all things nice. You know, and I used to hear this, and I really think that was maybe thinking of it, wasn't really a nice nursery rhyme that we had to deal with. So I knew in all my life I was really struggling with my identity. But I kept this a secret for all my life. I remember before I left South Africa, I went to a psychologist, and I said, you know, I do have this issue that I do feel that I should have been born a woman. And they said to me, well, there is a way. We can do tests. It's going to take so many hours to do the test. And then they asked me a question back then. They said, well, how would you like this to turn out? And at the time I said, I'd just love it to go away, because that was the easiest solution. You know, you're dealing with family, the community, especially back in South Africa, not only was there the apartheid problem, but it was a very conservative country. But I knew I wanted to get out of South Africa. I knew that at that time, it just wasn't for me. So I actually managed to eventually, when I qualified as an elevator technician and I went in the casino business, and I left and I eventually ended up on the island of Curacao, where one of the things also with my struggle, I remember in Curacao, I did go speak to the doctor about my condition, and she was saying, well, maybe you should try a gay relationship. But the thing that was confusing for me was that I was always attracted to women.
Yeah.
And not just, and that's, I think that's a lot of misconception people have about trans people. They think that it reflects your sexuality, which it doesn't. Transgender, being transgender just means what gender you identify as, and your sexuality is something separate.
It's not, and that gets misconstrued sometimes, where people just assume, well, then are you gay or are you this? And it really is.
Yeah. So I lived most of my life as a regular heterosexual male, you know, to say, because obviously I was attracted to females, but, you know, after my wife passed away and my son moved out of home, I said, you know, now it's time for me to do what I want to do. And I remember I sold my place. I was living in St. Catharines at the time, and I moved to Niagara Falls. And I said, this is where I'm going to, you know, really explore. And I remember going to a therapist that somebody had recommended, and it only took me one session to understand my destiny. And it just so happened to be on the 17th of July. The number 17 just has popped up in my life quite a bit. So at where I remember she was saying, and I had this talk with her, and I just remember the words she said. She said to me, Lisa, you've been preparing this for all your life. And as soon as she said that, just things fell into place. And it was like I was almost on a carnival ride where it was, my cart was just hooked on, and all I had to do now is just let the journey begin.
Yeah.
And that's how I did. And, you know, I went through, it was a very big struggle for me because I was born in South Africa. I lived in the Caribbean, which is Dutch island, for 20 years. So I had a Dutch nationality, and then I was living in Canada. And so it was very complicated getting my name changed. I had to petition the courts in Holland to change my name and gender, and it cost me a lot in lawyers' fees, but eventually I had a lawyer who was actually a lesbian that actually she came to my rescue, and she did it absolutely free.
Wow.
So I remember that she's one of my heroes, you know. So she got my papers changed, and then I applied for the Canadian citizenship. And I remember there was still this thing about locally I was accepted as my driver's license reflected female, but federally they were a little bit behind. So I was a little concerned, but I was really happy with when my nationality, my Canadian citizen did come through, they did have my gender right. So I was really happy about that.
It's been beautiful when that happened.
But yeah, it was interesting that it's, you know, I was just so determined. And I remember when I did eventually, because there was a time in my life, I think 2012, I was actually switching between male and female roles because I had a consulting business, so I'd had to do it as a male. And then whenever I got home, I would change back to Lisa. And, you know, leading up to surgery, it's interesting that I went through CAMH. I had to have 3 assessments done. And interesting enough, the book I wrote was actually started from that, because one of the things they asked me was to write an essay about my transgender, you know, struggle. And that essay that's what turned that into the book. I just kept writing throughout the transition. But I remember it was actually a 17th when CAMH called me and they said, you've been approved for surgery. And I was scheduled for surgery for the following year, the 6th of January. But I remember coming home one day and seeing this email from Montreal, and they said, we have a cancellation. Would you like to have surgery next month on the 17th? And I said, yes.
On the 17th, 17 again.
On the 17th again, yeah, the 17th plays into me.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that when I did leave from Montreal, I had a friend that accompanied me. And strangely enough, we left from platform 17, to go to Montreal. And arrived in Montreal, which the clinic happens to have 17 beds. So I had surgery on the 17th, and I actually met my wife. We had surgery the same day, who just happens to be 17 years younger than me. So it's definitely been my guiding number. And going through surgery, that was tough. I didn't expect what it was like recovering, because I remember I was advised that be careful not to get addicted to the Oxycontin. Yeah. So there was a time that I did stop it, and I was just taking Advil and Tylenol. So it was a struggle for me. It took me about a year to recover. But
mentally, I know, I just want to, so physically it took a year. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. Mentally, did you feel like you were in the right body soon after, or did it also take a year or so?
It actually, funny enough, when I started my medication, because I was on two things, I was on estrogen and spiritone, which is a blocker, at the time before surgery, there was a time when I actually felt almost my brain switching in some ways. I don't know if I can talk about it, but there was something sexually related to that.
I kind of know where you're going with this, though, but that must have been a really big turning point for you when you started to feel that way.
It was, and but everybody says to me, they'll ask me, once you have his surgery, is it like hallelujah moments, but it wasn't. I went through a lot of pain, and I remember a friend of mine would say to people, it's like she had 5 babies at once, and I remember when I was promoting my book, somebody sent me a really nasty message and says, how can you associate yourself as a woman? You don't know what you go through. And I wrote back to her and I explained to her, I said, I just went through surgery, and I just want to tell you that I went through hell. I went through a lot of pain. And it's almost, I felt almost justified that becoming a woman, having gone through that pain, the physical,
and the fact that it went on so much longer. It went, the recovery time was so long.
Yeah, and it was actually because I had a little bit of a complication. One of my stitches actually broke, and they don't re-stitch you. I just had to heal, and so that was really tough for me. But having said that, now that many years have passed, and when the pain and everything went away, I just feel right. My body and mind are now connected. I am, and that's where once I was established that I am who I am, and that's when I decided to follow my childhood dream, which was from a childhood, was the film business.
And now you felt like you were in your right body, so not only to create but to act.
Yes, and it's interesting. What I actually experienced was when I did this, I had no fear, and that's why when I attacked anything from a business thing, I had no fear. I think, what do I have to lose? I always say to people, what it was like is, imagine a kid on the edge of an ice rink and they're scared to go on. And they just anticipating, but as soon as they get on the ice and they know how to skate, they love it. And that's what it was like for me.
No more hanging on the boards. You were just
no
skating.
more hanging. I was just skating away. I remember, and it is a happy moment. I always say to people that being your true self, you will experience unconditional happiness. Because I remember when I did transition, you know, I wanted to go up on the mountain and shout to everybody. I remember when I did transition, because I had so many friends internationally, and I didn't know how to handle it. So I actually came up with a little lie at the time. I said, oh no, I am moving up north. I'm actually going to be living with the indigenous people. I'm just going to go totally off social media, off grid and that.
Yeah.
And I even thought about, do you fake your own death? You know, just tell, so that
you're so dramatic. I love it.
But you know what, after a while I said no. When I did transition, I felt so really proud and happy when I did. I started reaching out to my friends. Because of the casino business, I had friends all around the world. And I remember I reached 33 friends. And out of the 33 friends, 30 of them were all accepting of me. You know, and so that was something that really made me happy. And
you felt proud inside of yourself, proud enough to be able to share this.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things people do ask me is that, and I know it was one of my intentions, they said, when you transition, you're a woman now, do you want to just blend in and just don't say anything? But the reason I actually been open about my transgender, there's a few reasons. The first reason is actually security, funny enough, because when I kept quiet about it and people got to know me, and they'll be friendly with you, and then all of a sudden they found out you're transgender, things can turn very bad very quickly. So I'm of the mind that this is who I am, you accept me, love me or leave me. The second reason I said is that I wanted people, I'm not ashamed of who I am. So I wanted to show people not to be afraid, so that other transgender people can see and to try and be a bit of a role model for them, that I see they have nothing to fear. You know, we're not freaks, we're only human. The third reason why I am open about it is also to educate the public, because I've actually had quite a few people that have changed their mind. They were transphobic or homophobic before, but after they got to meet me and just realized that I'm not a freak, you know, and it's really changed their mindset towards trans people.
I think you also are giving a great representation of a trans person and what a trans person is capable of. And it's not just the negative stigmas that people say. We are all equal, we're human. And yes. I think sometimes when people see someone like you or talk to someone like you, you may be different than what they've experienced or seen in the past. And I just think you're a great visibility, great representation. And that's why I was just so happy to have you on the show and just share you with other people.
Well, thank you. You know, yeah, I remember seeing there was actually a interesting documentary. It was called Disclosure. I think it was on Netflix. And they were talking about all this trans thing. And it was actually films, it was movies that were almost encouraging the people to make fun of trans people. You know, we were always the joke you know, there was a movie called Crying Game. And I remember
we were just talking about this the other day. Yes.
Yeah, I remember a friend of ours showed it, and they didn't tell us what was, you know, about the film, and they wanted to see our reaction on that. But yeah, people were sort of taught to be disgusted by us. But I'm happy to say that in the film business industry, it's changing. And especially recently.
The narrative's changing a bit. That's good.
It has.
That's good. I think your visibility and other people that are trans, genderqueer, I think they're changing it too. They're changing the narrative for those who want to get out there and do what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you also have another coming out story, right?
Well,
technically, you came out as a lesbian?
Yes, and then I had to come out as a lesbian, but which it was interesting before. I kept an open mind because
Yeah.
people said that some people during a transition they do tend to change. So for me, after I did transition, I thought, okay, I was curious to see if my sexual preference will change, and it didn't. So to me, it was almost as that second coming out as a lesbian, identifying as a lesbian.
Did your friends assume maybe once you transitioned that you would go after men more? Did they think that was a possibility?
I think some of them did, but some of them did know I always
They
had
knew you
love
loved
for
women.
women. Yes.
Good. Some of them already knew.
Some of them probably knew.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about your show, because in your show, you are showing some representation too. You act in the show Pink is In.
Yes.
And you have a great character, entertaining character. It is a comedy for everybody that is wondering. So it's a comedy, but there's a lot of serious stuff that you're going to be covering.
Yeah, so what we decided to do with Pink is In, I really wanted to make it purely entertainment. You know, I think laughter is one of the best cure in the world. But because I really want to be so inclusive of all the diversities, but one of the directions we all decided is that we don't want to make the diversity the center of it. We just want to have characters who just happen to be transgender, who happen to be genderqueer, non-binary, BIPOC, and you know, and that's what it is, and that's what I'm so proud about, especially with season 2 that we just
finished. Yeah, you just wrapped that up.
Yeah, we
when can we be expecting that?
We hoping to have the final delivery before the 15th of March. So we're really hoping to have it ready then. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the editor is. I'm really trying to hopefully that at least we can put out a teaser before the end of this year, so as people can see what to expect in season 2. Yeah.
You're doing well as far as the film festivals go. I can see on your background picture that that is a huge indication to me that this is the kind of show that people want. They want something a little lighthearted. They want something where they can laugh. I watched the series twice. I thought it was hilarious. It kind of had like a Canadian feel to it too, which was funny to me because growing up watching Canadian television, there was always just a little bit of a difference. And it also kind of has like a British feel to me too.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. It's a lot different than your mainstream things that are out there. I have a question for you. We didn't really talk about your parents or your family. And if you don't want to, that's fine. But I'm just curious, when you were transitioning or thinking about it, when you were going back and forth, is that something that you included your family in, or did you?
Yes, I did. You know, I first reached out I have 3 sisters and 1 brother. And one of my sisters, it was interesting. I contacted her thinking she'll be the most understanding, but out of the 3, it was my eldest sister that was immediately accepted me. You know, the other one struggled. My 2 sisters and my brother really struggled with it. You know, I remember there was a comment, I think my brother might have made that, you know, normally you hear about this happening in somebody else's family or on the news, that, you know, that it was very shocking to them. But my parents were old and both of them were alive at the time. And I really wanted to tell them. And my family back then was saying to me, no, don't, it's going to kill them. Because my parents were very religious. They brought up Catholic. They were, you know, they were devout Catholics. But it was really bugging me. So it was so bugging me. And I eventually reached out to my family. I said, listen, I have to tell them. So I remember I called them up and I said to them, you know, I do have to tell you something about what I've been struggling all my life. And surprisingly, I know it was hard for my mom. I heard she cried because it's you do mourn somebody when they transition. Because I remember even when I did my name change, I actually recorded myself opening up the letter. And I thought maybe this is going to be a joyous moment. But when I looked at the legal name change and the realization, I actually did cry because I was mourning the other life I had lived. I knew
Many
it was coming
emotions
to
are
an end.
behind that. Yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
it comes in. So my mother went through that, and my father, but I'll tell you what, they were so accepting of me. And I was very fortunate in 2018. My mother was very ill, and they knew that she wasn't going to make it. And I remember sending her a message, and she had never seen me as Lisa. And I said to her, Mom, do you want me to come? And she said yes. And I just didn't really have the money at the time to do it, but I just put on a credit card and I said, you know what, I know my wife helped me, Goldie helped me as well with some money. And I just went to see them. And I remember with my mom, I said, Mom, thank you so much for accepting me. And she looked at me so confused and she said, why wouldn't I? And it was such a beautiful moment for me that my mom was so accepting. And I remember, obviously, my father might have been struggling with it a bit. And I remember her turning around to my father, his name was William Will, and says, well, when they go, you say goodbye to your daughter. And it was my mom saying to her, this is your daughter. And I was very fortunate that I got to see them both before they passed away.
And they got to see you.
And they got to see me, And my dad was so surprised because of the experience I had looking after myself after surgery. I actually learned a lot. I ended up taking care of my mom, and even my sister was like surprised and says, wow, you really know what you're doing. Because I immediately went in there and I just, started taking care of my mom and because she was bedridden at the time. But it was a beautiful moment. I remember when I had to say goodbye to my mom. I knew it was going to be a difficult time. And I said to her, Mom, when we say goodbye, let's make this a happy moment. And we did. And when we said goodbye, neither one of us cried. And it was a beautiful moment. And it was just something that happened at the moment that we knew we'd see each other again. There was that, And it was just so interesting. I was at Cedars just recently, and I met somebody, a guy for the first time, and he says, by the way, I'm psychic. Your mom is with you and loves you, and she's so proud of you. And it just so happened that very day he said that to me was the 3rd year anniversary of her passing. So I'm pretty sure I'm just so thankful I got to see my parents and they got to meet the daughter they never knew they had.
So happy you also, like, this resonates with me. I lost my mother and I helped take care of her towards the end too. And unless you had to do that and been in that situation, it's a really hard place to be, but it's the only place to be when you're there. And I'm just so happy that they were able to see you for who you really are and accept you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks.
Your brothers and sisters, as you got older and now, are they more accepting?
Oh yes, now they are accepting of me. They've realized that I've always been a sort of business person. I've really been positive. I've always gone off to my dreams, and I know they're very supportive and really happy that I'm pursuing this dream, because it was actually, in a way, my father, I would say, that helped me with this dream, because my father had these old movies, these old 8mm because when I grew up in South Africa, there was no television, so it was just film. And I used to love watching the old black and white films. They had the Charlie Chaplin, there was a Woody Woodpecker, there was even a cowboy one they had. And I used to just love, and for a child, I just loved that film. And I think that's what's where my passion started from.
Definitely why it started to become a dream for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you ever had the chance to make any types of films in other places other than Canada?
At the moment, it's not, because as I said, I just started very late in life.
Yeah.
I started acting in 2017.
It's never too late though, right? It's never
No,
too
it's not. And I did my first two films in 2018. Then in 2019, I met Darren Stewart Jones. He's also from the LGBT community, and I did his first two films, which is Digging Up Dorothy first, and then Stroke of Fate, which actually starred Sheila
that was really
McCarthy.
good.
Yeah, which is actually going to be in the Hamilton Film Festival. And I am happy to say, and I hope Darren doesn't mind me mentioning this, it did get picked up by CBC. So it's going to be available on CBC Gem.
Okay, if you have just started, my friend, I can't wait to see what happens when we talk again. Honestly, I'm so proud of you. We did get to be kind of friends on Facebook before this.
Yeah.
So I got to kind of see a little bit about what you were doing and all of the good news coming in about Pink is In. And I just thought, this person really deserves this. This person really, like, you can tell they've been working. And then when I found out that this was something that you did later in life, I was so impressed. You've come a long way in a short time.
Well, I always jokingly say to people that because I got into it so late in life, I said, what took you 5 to 10 years to do, I have to do it in 1 year, because I've only got a little window to do this much. And so I just have to make it happen. But you know what?
Time. No.
But you know, with Pink is In, I have to say that it's one thing I learned in film. It's not about one person. It's about the collaboration of all the artists. And I think that's where I've been very fortunate with the people I have around and everybody involved with Pink is In, you know, from the cast and crew, my partners from Goldie, Aaron, Darren, Caroline, Kim, Aaron, you know, and our cast. Trish has been so great. It's one of our leads, and Ellie Ray. Everybody feels the magic, you know, and that started even when we did our teaser. When we got together and we did this little teaser, and we started pitching the show right during the pandemic. And we were very fortunate to get picked up during the pandemic. But if you come to one of our sets and they're filming, you will feel the magic.
I love that. One thing, you and I were having a conversation in the pre-Zoom meeting about how you try to help people that are maybe underdogs or are trying to get into the business, but maybe haven't had those opportunities. I loved that. That stuck with me.
Yeah, you know what, and that was also because of being transgender, you know, not having too many roles. And then being sometimes, you know, it was always a difficult choice, because I am a large woman. I can't change that, you know. So, and that's when I decided to do my film. Then I said, you know what, I'm not going to be looking for that super hot Hollywood stars and everything. I said, I want to give people a chance. And that's why I said to be so inclusive of all diversities. You know, a beautiful thing happened in season 2. We actually introduced a little person to the season 2, and we had a consultation with them before, and her name is Alexa. And she was just saying that being a little person, they always get cast in these certain roles that always, you know, because of their size and that. And we said, no, we want to just cast you in a role that you just happen to be a little person, you know. And the end of it, she gave us a little gift each, and she wrote this beautiful notes that she was so happy that we gave her chance of her first television show. And when I read it, I said, that's what it's all about. That's what I want. I want to give people the chance. I want to give people that don't have that opportunity giving them the chance to showcase their talents and be part of something, and that's something I've said from the get-go, and I will always commit to that as being a producer.
Well, this can be also a good reason as to why you're doing so well. I do believe if you're putting that good in there, that, in theory, the good should come out. And it looks like you're doing well so far for starting your career.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Just some things that I was wondering. So we kind of talked about this a bit, but do you believe that it's important to be visible in this industry? If you are coming into it as transgender queer, do you think it's important?
I think it is. I had that question when I started taking acting lessons and I got my first principal agent. And I said, I told her about me being trans, and she said to me, should I embrace it or do you keep quiet about it? And she said, no, you need to embrace it. But an interesting, funny thing she said to me, she said, so what acting experience do you have? So I said, well, most of my life I had to act the role as a male, And it is true.
It's a very big acting role.
It is a big
I had to act
acting
straight
role.
for years. It was.
Yeah.
I also have a question. Have you faced any challenges as a viewer? Like, have you faced any challenges because of your gender identity?
I have, and that's, like I said to you before, why I'm very open about who I am. And I want people to know that when they meet me, because when people have perceived me as just being a natural woman, and then they find out I'm trans, I've had them turn around and be really nasty to me. And that is one of the challenges I have. But there is another challenge I had, and this is to do with gender. I had a woman, Veronica, and she was sort of my mentor. She was 2 years ahead of me in a transition. And she said to me, Lisa, you're going to notice the difference between being a male businessman and being a businesswoman. And that was a big challenge. I did notice that I started a vending business because I had a very successful casino consulting business when I came to Canada. But when I transitioned, I said, I don't want to go to a workplace and be faced with discrimination. Let me try something. So I started a vending business. And I really did notice that people sort of, you had to really stand, just being a woman, you had to really stand up for yourself.
You get responded to differently too.
To be heard, yeah. I had experience with I was invited to put in a bid there was a new arena opening up, and I was the only woman at the presentation. And I could see all the men huddling around like the old boys club, and they were totally ignoring me. And then they started talking about healthy vending, which I knew quite a bit because I started with healthy machines. And then I opened up and I just made some comments to me. And then they turned around and they said, okay, who are you? Because they realized I knew what I was talking about. But I tell you what, I do notice, just being from a woman, is for the presentation, I had to make a presentation for the bid. And I knew I had to work hard, and I worked hard for this. I knew I was competing against all these other men, well-established men in the business. And I put in the application, and I have to say I did win the bid, by the way.
Good. That's good. I like that.
But I did realize that I had to really work harder.
You had to step your game.
Yeah, sure. I had to step my game up and think, but these things are slowly changing.
Most people would never understand that experience, and only someone like you could be able to tell us what it's like to do business as a man, your former self, and how it is now, your true self. Yeah. Now, one other question, and then I think we're going to go to some of the other questions we've got, if we have, in the Zoom room. What advice would you give to anybody that wants to follow in the career path that you're in?
I would say one of the things is get some training. The training is always good, and training can come in many ways. if you do want to be an actor or actress, well, nowadays the word actors being for both genders. So
Yes.
if you want to be a, definitely do take lessons. I actually took lessons from a guy from Niagara Falls called Livingston Beaumont. He was really great. And he actually, and just some of those basic training is definitely helpful. Where I didn't get a chance to go to film school, but my film school was actually doing being a background performer as an extra.
Yeah.
And I learned so much. I got to be front and center to some of the best filmmakers in the world, you know, because as you know, Toronto has a lot of filming.
Yes.
So I learned that. So I'd say definitely do your research, get some training,
Get some experience.
Get some experience, you know. And I remember with even with acting, you'll find that when you do start up, you can volunteer, and one of the best ways to volunteer is some of the student films. I remember my very first acting thing was a student film from Niagara College, and they wanted me to play a professor, and I did that, and they were really happy from their performance. I didn't get any pay, so there's quite a few roles I've did without getting paid, but it just helps you, you know, build that experience.
And it builds a certain confidence, right? I'm sure that
yes,
the more hours that you get doing your trade, you're going to feel more confident.
It does. And, you know, one of the things is being an actor is they'd say that once you win your first audition, it will boost your confidence way up. And I remember that's what some of the roles I was getting, like I didn't really have to audition for it. It was mainly picture casting, as they say. But I remember my very first audition where I actually won it, and it was a speaking role. It was actually for a transgender character, but when I read the role, I said, "Wow, this is me. This is how I really push it in." And it was even a non-paying one. It was somebody who had just recently graduated, and they were pitching it was supposed to be for a series. But I remember them calling me and says, you know, we loved your audition. To me, it was such a confidence boost, you know, just
I think
having that. And
knowing that you're meant to play a role and then getting that role.
Yeah, that is something, yeah.
That would definitely give you that boost for sure. I am so thankful for the stories you've told tonight. The one that you told about your parents, I'm really glad that you shared that. That was an emotional story, but a beautiful, beautiful outcome.
Well, thank you for having me. And you know, listen,
Yeah.
I love to help and try and inspire, you know, other people. And it's interesting, you know, even when my book that some people have read, they've come to me and they said, you know, and these are not people in the LGBT community. They said, but you've helped me inspire to overcome their own obstacles. And that's, I feel so happy when I hear that I've helped somebody along the way.
Well, I think that, like, if you've gone through life not being accepted completely or not feeling that you're accepted, and then you go into an industry like this and take people that don't feel accepted and make them feel accepted, there's no better feeling that you can get in your heart when you know you've made a difference in someone's life that didn't have a chance.
Yes.
I really think it's important. So Sylvia, do you think we could get into some Q&A?
Sure. Yeah, I actually have some comments that I want to read because I think people are reacting to Lisa's story as she was going on, specifically about, you know, coming out to her family. And I think there's some crying emoji because I think we're shedding some tears. One person said, "Oh my goodness, what an emotional and affirming moment with your mother. That you have so much to be proud of, and people are just congratulating you basically on your career and your life."
Thank you.
Lots of hearts, and obviously, you know, you talk about having an impact or helping someone along the way, and I think this type of chat and what you do with your show and your book, I think that is definitely going to be something that does help people. And obviously in this way too, the small little way that we can facilitate a talk, I think it helps people. So we're We're really glad. Oh, I have a question. So you seem to have been so incredibly successful in everything you set out to do. Can you attribute that to just being awesome?
No, it's interesting. I recently, for the very first time, watched a show on, I think it's also on Netflix, called The Secret. And I watched it and I was listening. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Apparently there's a book called The Secret.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was listening to this and I said, wow, that's the way I approach life. And I think part of it is trying to be positive and really believing. And, I think if you believe in something and you have a dream, I always say to people, the day you give up on your dream is the day your dream dies. So if you have a dream, I always live life that I set a goal and I said, this is where I want to reach. Then you have to find your way to get to that goal. And that's the way I've approached life, that I was very fortunate to come from a loving family. I know I've met so many people that have not, unfortunately, had that experience. So it was, but funny enough, my father was very pessimistic and he would always look at the bad side. But the approach I got when people doubted me, I always wanted to prove them wrong. So even the negative people inspired me, and it is, and like I say to somebody, is focus on it and believe in yourself and you will make that come possible.
Thank you for being so vulnerable. Like you've shared some really important things, and really, really appreciate you saying yes to doing this interview.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I think what you're doing is really great, and I think people do need to hear these different stories and get inspired. Just people don't be afraid. And one of the advices somebody did say to me, what's the best way to sort of combat a bully? And I would say just be confident. Because bullies always pick on the vulnerable or weak, but if you really confident, show confidence, and you'll see people will treat you differently.
I think that is excellent advice and a great way to close the show. Thank you so much.
One more comment.
Oh, one more comment.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So Catherine said, I just want to say that representation is so important. It was literally a TV show, The 100, that gave me the courage to come out and accept myself. What you create is so incredibly important, and it's going to change society for the better.
I love that.
That's
Thank you,
awesome.
Catherine. You really are. I can't wait to see. I heard something like you want 8 seasons or something.
Yeah, I'm predicting 8 seasons. We've had quite a few people that have been a little bit psychic on our show, and they also predicting that this show is going to go international. And
I believe it.
I was just speaking on our rap party to our lead Ellie Ray, and she was saying that pink is going to help heal, and I do believe that, because laughter and just bringing humor to people and just showcasing diversity and showing that you don't have to fear these people, is definitely going to be something healing.
And you really are building a community with pink. And
Yes.
I think that will translate when people watch it and get familiar with the characters, including yours. Thank you so much. Is there any other comments or questions?
I think just lots of hearts coming up, and I think
Lots of love.
are very inspired by you. So thank you for sharing.
Inspired.
Yeah, me too.
Well, thank you for having me on. And I wish you all the success, and I think you will have a lot of success with your show.
Yes, thank you. And maybe one day I can come hang out on the set of the 3rd season.
Definitely. We're hoping on some additional funding this month, and if it does come through, we're going back into filming another 2 episodes, just that we can finish the strip. And definitely, I'd love for you to come visit the set the next time we're filming.
I want to feel that energy that you talk about. Yeah, Sylvia, you come with me. We'll go
You're
check out
both of you are welcome to come, and I'll introduce you to the cast.
Catherine, you're coming
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone,
Okay,
for
then.
watching
Thank you.
tonight. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good
Take
night.
care.